Hello friends, Charlie Murphy here. Thank you for choosing my video. Today I'm playing a session of 2-5 no limit 6 max games on Ignition. I've already got the tables up and running, so we'll jump right into the action. Lower right hand table, open queen 10 suited from the cutoff. Get 3-bet pretty large size by the small blind, about a 5x 3-bet. And against that sizing, I can still defend in this elusive formation reasonably wide. I'm going to be calling most of my pocket pairs, probably 4-betting to call off with aces, kings, ace-king suited, mixing in some bluffs. Calling with my suited broadways, a few suited connectors, and most, if not all, of my pairs. Plus a couple of wheel aces, probably. He leads into me small on ace-10 deuce. I've got second pair. Just go ahead and continue for a call. He checks. I'm going to go ahead and stab at this small. I'm going to do this with a large part of my range, sort of, flush draws or straight draws that are still drawing to set up a nice big river jam all in. I've got something like a flop set of 10s, ace 10. Hands like that want to be getting value as well. He comes along and calls. River is the flush closer. I don't know that I'm ever going to fold out a pair of aces. I'm never really going to fold out a flush. Straight's got there. The real strong hands aren't folding. I think I'm probably better off just trying to show this down as opposed to trying to bluff them off an ace with. I don't think I'm good here that much, but I do think betting is just going to get me snapped off there. Open queens on the lower right-hand table from middle position. A little bit shorter from that 3-bet pot that I lost. Still opening queens, of course. Not going to change that at all. Small blind comes along for a call. Get a jack 10-5 two-tone board. Go ahead and put in a small range bet. Upper left-hand table, I stab small on the turn with my air ball. I'm going to go ahead and follow through on the river with my bluff. Now, interesting turn card here in that I no longer have a real strong top pair with the ace peeling. I do have some gut shots to the straight. I'd like checking back better with the diamond than without. I think I still want to be checking back hands like pocket queens. I could be betting my weak ace-x with no diamond and checking back a lot of ace-x with the diamond. So I can call on it on 4 flush rivers. I think with the pocket queens here, I want to check back with or without the diamond. Pretty good river card for me, and that it's a lot harder for him to have the ace. I'm going to go ahead and try to get, somewhat thin value from a jack or a 10. I'm not that worried about the flush having him check twice or the ace having. Blind on blind, lower left-hand table, I'll open pocket 4s. Blind on blind, upper right-hand table, I will open jack 10. Got an ace 10-3 two-tone flop in the blind battle. I'll go ahead and check range. It's the half pot stab. I will check call, continue checking the turn. Not a great turn for me with no spade in my hand and that flush closing third spade hitting. River is the 4th spade. I don't have a spade. I believe there's probably more merit in trying to turn my hand into a bluff. Actually, I think I'll just try to show it down. I might actually check raise bluff with it if he stabs, though. Lower left-hand table, I will check range. I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a bluff here on that 4 flush and 4 straight run out. Lower left-hand table, I checked range in the blind battle on queen 10-4. Going to go ahead and put in a check raise with my bottom set. My river raise got through. He thought about it for a little while, so he was probably doing that with some kind of decent spade. Thought it was check raising worked out, whereas leading as a bluff would have just got me called. table. The you have a two can in pre-flop. Got a guy playing short the upper right hand table, lower right hand table. One guy is active pre-flop, but doesn't seem necessarily out of line. Lower left hand table, got a button open. I will go ahead and 3-bet the 2.5x open from the small blind with ace jack suited. Upper right hand table will open aces from middle position. Face a 4-bet from the button. This is a very loose formation, so I can't just be folding to 4-bets blindly. Upper right-hand table, open Jack-10 suited under the gun. When I face that 4-bet from a reg on the button, I probably want to be jamming queens, kings, ace-king, maybe ace-5 suited as a bluff. Trap with aces, call with something like jacks through 7s, and my suited broadways like ace-jack suited. I'm going to go ahead and defend call. Probably not too great a flop for me here. I can have various king X, I can have the ace over pairs, I can have sets of 9s. I can have various flush draws with gut shots, such as queen jack, queen 10, jack. I can have ace jack, ace queen with the flush draw as well. I think I just want to go ahead and fold this, especially with the king out there that smacks all of his ace king, which he has all of it. Lower right-hand table, we get a min-raise from the cutoff. I'm in the small blind with ace-10 suited. Going to go ahead and 3-bet that as well. Get called. Get a queen 9-6 rainbow board. Go ahead and put in a small range bet. Continue barreling on certain cards. Pick up straight draws on something like a jack, king, and 8. Some likely barrels. Ace would probably barrel as well for value. Lower upper left-hand table, open queen jack suited from the cutoff. Couple of fish in the blinds, good spot to be in. Lower right-hand table, turn is a 4, putting a backdoor flush draw out there, which I do not have. I don't have a ton of equity here. I think I'd rather be barreling with hands like straight draws, including king jack, that have good removal. If I'm going to start barreling weaker without even any kind of real equity, I think, or without any straight draw, I think a hand like ace king with good removal to the queen x call downs and overcards is probably a good way to go. Ace 10, I think I can just check and sort of give up if he turn. Upper left-hand table, king 10-3 two-tone. Going to go ahead and put in a small range bet. Gin card for me all over the place, making the straight in the upper left-hand table and top pair on the lower right. Going to go ahead and try to value bet my ace in the lower right. Go ahead and put in a small overbet to set me up for roughly 2.5 to 3x river jam with my straight in the upper left-hand table. I'm folded 2 in both spots. Lower right-hand or right-hand table opening ace queen suited from the button. Lower left-hand table opening ace king under the gun. Lower right-hand table, I'm going to go ahead and range bet small on the queen 10, or on the 10-8-4 two-tone board. I got some good cards I can barrel on here. Over cards for top pair. A jack gives me a double gut shot. Against the check raise here, a small check raise, I'm going to float that pretty wide. Like if I had ace queen with the backdoor flush draw, either backdoor to the 4-card flush draw with the hearts or ace queen of diamonds, I'd be calling. Here with 2 overcards where even the queen isn't the queen and the ace are somewhat tricky in that they're not truly nutted cards here in a check raise line, especially with 2 pairs or straights possible on the queen. I think I'll just go ahead and fold this one. Keep an eye out for how this guy attacks check raises, though. Doing a lot, I'll have to start floating a bit wider. Upper left-hand table, open pocket 3s from what's effectively the cutoff. So a right-hand table open an ace-5 suited from the cutoff. Go ahead and put in a small range bet here on the 7-4 deuce rainbow board. Lower right-hand table also range bet small in position, this time on Queen Jack 7 rainbow. Upper right-hand table, going to open King 10 from middle position. Lower right-hand table, a 3, putting a backdoor flush draw up there. I've got an overcard. The 5 isn't really an out to a bluff catcher. I think I'd rather just barrel with this hand as opposed to check back and try to peel some kind of bluff catcher on the river or show down my ace high. Go ahead and use the overbet or check sizing convention on this particular board texture, and he quickly folds. Upper left-hand table, after my small bet got called, turn is a 9. I'm going to go ahead and check back my 3. It's got some showdown value here against random overcards, or I beat ace high, or a deuce type stuff. Well, see if we can get this closer to the river. You know, it's also not a great card to barrel, and that the 3, which is my gin card, makes straights on possible 5, 6, or ace type holdings as well. I think I'd rather keep the pot smaller here. Barreled into, kind of too weak to really be a bluff hand here. It's 4 pairs on the board higher than that. However, I do think I can go ahead and bluff raise. Go ahead. Get led into by a fish player on the upper right hand table on King Queen 8 two-tone. I do have top 2 pair. I'm just going to go ahead and flat that in position. I'm happy getting that much in the pot on the flop. I was going to collar myself anyway. And I'm keeping my range together by not raising, so it's easier for me to play in future streets. Lower right hand table, blind on blind, 3x open. I will defend with 7-6. I'm going to go ahead and stab for half pot on the upper right-hand table and set myself up for a nice big river overbet jam. Flop gin on the lower right-hand table, the nut straight on 9-8-5 two-tone. He checks to me. I'll go ahead and stab small. Check calls. Turn is an offsuit king. I still have the nuts, which is a good spot to be in, of course. Continues checking. I can be pretty nutted here in that I can have all the 7-6 offsuit from pre-flop, as well as the 8s and the 5s. I will have 3-bet 9s. I'm not that worried about him having a nut advantage on me here based on pre-flop ranges, and based on his flop passive check call line as well. So I'm going to be using overbet sizings here. Go about 11, set myself up for about a 3x river jam. For left-hand table, opening Jack 10 on the button. Upper right-hand table, I limp the small blind after a fish limps in position with pocket 7s. Get 2 callers upper left-hand table. I will neither range bet nor range check in position multi-way. I'll check back to 10-9. Lower left-hand table can go ahead and defend for a call with 5-3 suited against 3x open. Upper right-hand table can go ahead and stab small. Do have some backdoor draws. 5-3 hand. The jack against a lead and a raise on that 3 flush board. At least fold. I'm going to float with the 5-3 backdoor straight and flush draws. I no longer have the nuts. Well, I really can't give him credit for too much queen jack. I was thinking about maybe betting smaller, but I think I'll just go ahead and jam here. I'm not that worried about queen jack. I'm going to go ahead and stab small in position on the lower left-hand table after he starts checking. Check raise pretty good, and I'll just be done with the hand with 5 high, no And sometimes get some suspicious hero calls from overbets in these blind on blind spots. Didn't get that. Upper right hand table will open Queen 8 suited from the cutoff. Upper left hand table, a recreational player min raises from the cutoff. I'm in the big blind with ace 9. I can defend most, if not all, of my offsuit aces here for a call. Been a bit passive, so maybe a bit tighter than I would cut off open. Still can be very wide. However, when he bets overbet on the 6-6-5 rainbow board, I'm just going to go ahead and fold my high. Lower left-hand table will open ace-king from the cutoff. And we get a 4.5x 3-bet out of the small blind. Fold against the button open from the small blind. Just assume he's a standard reg, and I like to actually call ace king in position more so than 4 bet. 4 betting, of course, would also be fine. Get a bit better in the call range, though. We'll call and go to the flop. He checks to me on the 10-9-5 rainbow board. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small with my ace king high. Can actually be getting value from call here, or I just take down the pot easily right now. Pushes equity to 0, which is also fine. Board smacks me as I've got 10-9-5 rainbow, I believe it was. Board does smack my calling range real hard, as I'm going to have 10s, 9s, and 5s at almost 100% frequency there in that spot, plus 10-9 suited as well. And jacks and queens and all sorts of ace 10, king 10, queen 10, jack 10 type stuff. Also got straight draws like queen jack, king queen with overcards. And even a hand like 8-7 suited for the low open ender. So I've got a lot of good things going on there. Ace king is actually a relatively weak hand for me on that particular board. Small blind against the middle position open. I will just go ahead and fold that one with ace jack. Upper right hand table with opening queens from the cutoff. Great flop for queens. Queen 10 for rainbow. I'm sandwiched between an in-position caller and a big blind player, so I'll check range sandwiched between both of them. Upper left-hand table, opening Jack 10 from the cutoff. Lower right-hand table, I will defend for a call with 4 deuce suited. Upper left-hand table, got called in position by a rec. I'll check range to him with top 2 pair on Jack 10-7 rainbow. Great card for me on the turn. 10's giving me the full house, essentially. Against that half-pot stab, I'm going to go ahead and put in a check raise with queens on the upper right-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and bet pot to try to juice this pot up against a fish on the upper left. Not a great turn card, and that a straights are now possible to king jack or even jack 9, but I've got top set. Not going to start getting too clever with myself. I'm just going to go ahead and bet half pot. Set myself up to put the rest of the money in on the river. Go ahead and check back with a weak showdown value pair on the lower right hand table. Yeah, and he's raising over this here, but the thing is, even though he can have some king jack or jack 8, even he can also have various sets that can overset as well, or even something like queen 10. I'm not going to start getting too cute. I've got top set. I'm putting the money in. Yep, and we overset him. Had a feeling on the turn it was a cooler. I'm just glad it was in my favor and not his. I think I'll take my showdown here with the 4. Probably not folding them off too much in that particular spot. I don't think the 4 is good all that often. I just don't think. Bluffing. Lower left-hand table, 2.5x open from the button. I'll defend with king 8 suited. Upper right-hand table, we get an under-the-gun open, 2.4x, or I guess that's effectively middle position with the dead player. Now I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet from what's effectively the cutoff with ace-jack suited. Lower left-hand table, get a sizable bet, looks like about 75%. I'm going to go ahead and call here with the king 8 on queen 10-9. I've also got the backdoor draw. Get called by the RFI player on the upper right-hand table. Get a top pair, top kicker on Jack 8-7 two-tone. I will go ahead and range bet small. Now, he checks back the turn. River gives me top pair on a Forester. I'm going to go ahead and check that, try to show it down. Go ahead and check raise my open ender in this button versus big blind. You know, it's a loose formation, small bet size, so check raising is going to be pretty good there. I'm going to use another small bet, I think, here. You go about 10. Sets me up for about 48. Go about 11. So I want to have about a 3x pot size behind me here for my real strong hands. Can also charge his weaker pairs, stuff like flush draws, pocket 9s, pocket 10s a little bit to the river without too much chance of actually getting value off me. Three X open from a sort of loose passive recreational type on the button. 9-5 suited against a 3x open there. Even against a regular button player is going to be a pretty easy fold. Against a player who's short stacked and passive, it's than it already would be. Lower left-hand table, opening kings from middle position. Interesting flop for the kings. Queen Jack 9 two-tone against the big blind. He checks, so I'll go ahead and put in a small bet in position. I really like kings a bit better than aces here because of my blocker to the king 10 nut straight and in the gut shot that aces would. For the same logic, I think I would probably, for the most part, like king queen better than ace queen. Opening nines from under the gun, lower left-hand table. Opening king 9 from the button on the upper right-hand table. Up that reg fest table on the lower left-hand side and hopefully find some greener pastures here somewhere. Three X open from that tight passive player on the button. I guess he's loose passive, but he's tight with the raises. That's really going to be a pretty easy fold. Queen 3 suited on the button, lower right-hand table. Really just outside of standard open range for me at this. Pretty close. Could open it as well. Maybe losing the recreational player on the upper table, which is a upper left-hand table got a 3x open, blind on blind. We'll be defending very wide here, including hands like Jack 7 suited. Just take the flop for a call. No need to 3-bet that. Can 3-bet stronger hands. Polarized spot here, especially. Guys playing short. Lower left. Well, that's too early to say for sure, but sounds promising. Get let into for half pot on the ace 10 deuce two-tone board. Got a backdoor flush draw, some backdoor straight draws as well. Go ahead and float here in position. Trying the queen of diamonds, giving me a gut shot. Fold if he bets into me, but start stabbing it. Lower right hand table, open ace 5 suited from the cutoff, get called in position by a recreational player. Against that double barrel, just go ahead and. Lower right hand table will check range to the in position player. Do have a gut shot and an overcard on the 9-4 deuce two-tone board. He checks back, turn as a jack, putting the backdoor flush draw up there. I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing small. For left hand table, opening king queen in the blind battle. Fireworks. 4 and 5 bet pot in the blind battle over there. Lower queens versus jack. Spike. Pretty standard play. Get a 3x open from the cutoff lower right hand table. Jack 6 suited just outside of defense range. I probably would have flatted jacks against 4 bet and battle and jammed it all in pre-flop, but it's pretty close and jamming is. Short stack player open limps. I'm in the small blind with ace jack. He hasn't played a hand in 2 to 3 orbits, so it might be one of those guys that's looking just to limp jam on you. But I'm not going to go ahead and assume that. I'm going to assume he's just a regular passive recreational player here until he shows me otherwise. Not like I'm raising all that loose out of the blinds anyway against the limper. Big blind that's a fish comes along. The limper folds out. I get a king 7 deuce two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet here. The left-hand table, going to open blind down blind with ace 5. My continuation bet gets raised. I don't have too much going for this hand. I'm just going to go ahead and fold against raise. If I had a flush draw or a good pair, it'd be a good. Blind battle, lower left-hand table, got called by the big blind, got an ace, king, queen, monotone, or rainbow board rather. Go ahead and check range. Lower left-hand table, I checked against the limper, checked in and then checked the flop. Low board with the flush draw, I turn a small flush, I'll go ahead and start stabbing small. Lower left-hand table, the big blind checks back, I'll go ahead and start stabbing small there as well. I do have a weak top pair. Comes along for the call. River is a pretty blank card in 8. Going to go ahead and try to get value from a king or a queen and put in a value, but about 2/3, 70%, something like that. How many rivered 2 pair? Oh well. For left-hand table, we'll open 10-9 from the button. Upper right-hand table, blind down blind, get a 3x open, will defend for a call with Jack-9. One of the weaker hands I would defend in a blind battle, but still a very fine call. Start folding too much player if I'm not. My 10-9 faces a 3-bet, I'll just go ahead and fold. That's one of the weaker button. Nope. 3-bet would pitch it. I do have 3 to the straight, but with no spade in my hand, no, only a weak backdoor straight draw, I think I can go ahead and fold on the ace-10-4 two-tone board. Upper left-hand table, open 10-8 suited from the button. Get a small blind, likely recreational player calls. I'll go ahead and range bet small in position here after he checks. Lower left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from what's effectively the middle position player. I'll go ahead and 3-bet my ace-king. Interesting card for me. I have a double gut shot there on the 9. I'm going to go ahead and use small bet size here to set myself up for river jam, river value bet. Against the 4-bet here, the lower left-hand table, we're getting ace. You have to show me that. Just a small bet again because he's so short. Comes along for the call. A 4-bet gets through uncontested to pick up a nice pot there. River a pair here. However, he leads into me for pot on that 4 straight. Pretty sure I'm supposed to fold that here. Fish when they go check call, bet. That's actually significantly less bluffy. Plus that size up for pot is actually pretty neutral from fish out of position as pre-flop callers. The 4 straight river actually is over bluff, but only slightly. This all comes out. Mostly because that check call donk river line is really very underbluffed. Or underbluffed compared to average for fish, and that size up for pot is about neutral at best. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet here on the 9-8-6 rainbow board. I do have 2 overcards and an open-ended straight draw and a backdoor Jack-10 suited. He comes along for the call. Interesting card is that it's mostly a blank, the offsuit deuce, but it does put a backdoor flush draw up there, which I have. We're a little deep here, so my overbet size is going to be a bit bigger. I'm going to be using overbet or check, having not faced a check raise on that reasonably scary flop board with lots of potential draws out there. I want to set myself up for about 3x. We go like 14. Yeah, I'll go just shy of 2x pot here because we're so deep. And get that quick fold against the big overbet on the turn. Lower left-hand table, 3x open from a player that's been sort of a tight reg so far. King 5 suited is sort of outside of standard defense against a 3x under the gun open, so I'll just go ahead and fold that one instead. Tag. Get King 5 suited in middle position in the upper left-hand table, right near the bottom of a standard open range for me, but still a reason to bring in, so that's what I'm going to do. Directly behind. It actually might make me get a bit tighter because they're just going to call so much. Calling in position. But they will play poorly, which will help offset. Probably not going to worry about making too many wild deviations one way or the other after the position. And play pretty standard range. Do get squeezed here after the fish calls by the button. Fold my King 5. Would have had the nut flush draw on the ace-8 deuce on board, but we're happy now that I'm out of here. Fish did come along and call twice. Small bet in position. Pot down. I'm going to shuffle out the lower left-hand table. Just doesn't seem to be nearly as fishy as I would have hoped. Get a recreational player limps under the gun. The lower right-hand table, the small blind is completed, but everyone else folded. I'm going to go ahead and pop these guys up out of my big blind with the pocket jacks. This is the guy that against my recent ISO from the blinds raised my flop continuation bet. Now here's a spot where I might actually not range bet despite having the initiative pre-flop here in this isolation situation. Just because that board does not hit me very hard. I don't have any 6-8, any 7s, any 5s. Those are all checked in pre-flop. I think I just want to go ahead and check range instead because I just can't have so many nuts, and this guy can have all kinds of 2-pair straight and set combos. However, now that he goes and stabs, I'm going to go ahead and put in the check raise with my overpair. Not going to be that worried about a guy outdrawing me here with a half stack. He comes along for the call. Turn is the queen. Not ideal in that I don't have a diamond. However, I could see him calling off with far worse than a flush. I think I just want to go ahead and put in my jacks here for a little less than pot. And if he's got me beat, he's got me beat. Comes along for the call. He rivered turn queen 9 for 2 pairs. So my flop strategy was good. On a more forgiving turn, I'm going to punish him pretty badly. Stacked off there for half a stack. The way the game goes. Trying to get money in against these guys as good and thinly as possible. My king 10 suited 3-bet against the under the gun opener gets cold 4-bet by a player that's been pretty tight and passive. I've got him fish tag because he was a bit short, but it doesn't seem to really be bearing that. So I'll just go ahead and hold that. 2.5x open from the button and the upper left-hand table. I've got queen 9, which is a very reasonable big blind defense. So go ahead and call and check range on the flop. He goes ahead and bets small on the queen jack deuce two-tone board. I don't see much reason in check raising as there's not a whole lot of cards that are great for me floating this pot, but I do have a nice, reasonably strong top pair type hand here that I can call multiple streets with. I'll go ahead and check call and then check the turn. Now he goes and he puts in a turn over bet. Got top pair, still not going anywhere against that. Get to the river, flush closing river, that's 7 of diamonds. Now he goes and he bets, what was that? 25 into 33. He bets about 75% of pot. That sizing's about neutral. Triple barrel is slightly underbluffed. But the formation, button versus big blind, is overbluffed. By a couple percent. I think this should be a call here. Not a massively profitable bluff catch, but it should be a call. Against queen jack for 2 pair. I like that he value bet, quote unquote thin there on the flush closing board, but it's pretty mandatory to try to get some value there in his shoes. I think my bluff catch is reasonable, probably a little bit better than folding. Not massively profitable, but folding for sure. Folding captures 0% of the pot, whereas he probably captures 15 to 20% in that situation. 15% is probably a good guess. I won't be good very often. I'm never good one. And I will be good just often enough to justify it in my humble opinion. Lower right-hand table, opening ace-9 from the button. Fishy small blind player comes along for the call. Big blind player comes along too. Get a queen at 9-3 two-tone board. Rec leads for 5 into 7. Pretty big size for a multi-way pot. I think I actually can go ahead and fold this. I'd rather be calling with hands that are drawn into real robust equity outs. Flush draws, straight draws, things better top pairs. If I start facing additional barrels, there's just not a whole lot I can really do about this. And the donking fish lines are not particularly value heavy. I mean, the triple donk line is slightly underbluffed from fish, but the fact that it's multi-way on the flop probably changes that calculus pretty heavily as well too. think I'll just go ahead and fold. The other thing is because we have a shared defense responsibility, at least at equilibrium here, in a multi-way pot, those larger sizes mean we can start folding tons of hands because he's got to defend some, I've got to defend, keep him from having a profitable bluff. I think I can actually go ahead and fold second pair there and not feel too bad about it. Player. Limping blind down blind is not necessarily a tell for a fish, but in conjunction with his shorter than typical buy-in, he's likely a fish, but we'll see. Lost my recreational table on the upper left hand, recreational player on the upper left table, unfortunately. Lower right hand table, open 7-6 suited from the cutoff. Gonna squeeze with nines against the under the gun open and the cutoff call on the upper right hand table. Probably about the bottom of my squeezing range, but not really doing this with eights or worse. Lower right hand table, open ace-8 suited from middle position. Upper left-hand table, got a 2.5x open from the cutoff, a reg that's been fairly aggressive and active thus far in a couple orbits. I'm in the big blind. Ace King suited, and be putting in a 3-bet for sure. Four bets, I'm going to beat him into the pot with the jam. Along for the call, we get a 10-6 deuce two-tone board. I do have a backdoor flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and use the small bet on the flop. Barreling a lot of turn cards as well. Overcards either give me a straight draw or top pair, top kicker. Hearts are good cards to barrel as well. There is the jack giving me, offsuit jack giving me a gut shot and 2 overcards. Roll 22 into 35, set me up for about a 75% river jam here. Good removal of the top pairs, as well as actual outs with equity, such as the queen, the ace. Upper right-hand table, we get a blind down blind 3x open, defend for a call with jack 8 suited. I brick out on the river on that offsuit 7, but I'm not that worried about him having gotten there. I'm going to go ahead and stuff the rest in as a bluff. I'm going to fold my jack 8 that whiffed on that ace 10 deuce two-tone board with no real piece of it. And I got the bluff through. Recreational player limps the cutoff. I was going to isolate out of my blinds with ace 10, but the button beat me to the punch and isolates himself. I'll just go ahead and fold my ace 10 instead. Gonna open aces from the button on the upper right hand table. Do have a rec in the small blind. Would love to see him get involved. But he wants to tangle though, and I pick up the pot pre-flop. Gonna fold ace 8 from the cutoff here, just outside of standard open range from me, really opening 9 or better from the cutoff under usual circumstances and folding ace worse. Get a 2.5x open from the cutoff on the upper left-hand table. We'll go ahead and defend my big blind. 6-4 suited, check range on the flop. Just be check folding that flop. Queen 9-5 two-tone with draw for me. Get a short stack player filling in over here. All right, trying to get some tables filled up with some softer players, recreational type players. Hopefully this is one of them. The pickings are pretty slim right now. Lower right hand table, a recreational player open limps. I'll complete the small blind with king 7 suited. Upper left hand table under the gun opens 2.5x. I'm in middle position with king queen. I'm going to go ahead and put in a 3-bet. Excuse me. One of my weaker 3-bet combos, stuff like ace-queen offsuit, king-queen offsuit, pocket 9, some of the weaker suited broadways or wheel aces. Those are going to be some of my weaker 3-bets here. Hit cold 4-bet in position. Small size, but still. Perhaps the worst hand to continue in my range. King, queen offsuit, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold that even, get price. Be calling with my pairs for sure. Stuff like ace, queen. Gonna ship in my kings, my ace, king. Probably trap with my aces, call with the rest of the pairs as well. Upper right hand table, gonna open jack 9 suited under the gun. Button calls me kind of a passive recreational player, squeezes out of the small blind. He's short. I'm in a tight formation. It's one of my weaker opens. Squeezes, I want to get very tight, especially not against squeezes. Rather, I want to get very tight with my defenses, especially when I do not close the action, nor will I have position because of the in position player. All that in my mind adds up to this being an easy fold with jack 9. He flats the 3-bet with 8-7 suited and then flops trips against the fish. Must be living a very pure life to run so clean like that. What's effectively middle position opens in the lower right-hand table. I'll go ahead and 3-bet my cutoff with ace-king suited. I'm going to go ahead and defend that 2.5x open from my big blind with pocket deuces on the upper right-hand table. Great flop for the deuces, king, queen, deuce, two-tone. Goes ahead and bets small. I'd be check raising that small size pretty aggressively here, especially in a little bit looser formation here. I'll also be doing that with hands like probably king, queen, and deuces for value. Everything else is going to be draws and backdoor draw type hands, but we want to get the check raise in with the deuces. We are 200 blinds deep as well. Still think I want to be check raising deuces. I don't know if I'm going for full stacks here on a board like this, though. 5 is a nice clean turn card. I'm going to go ahead and bet about 2/3 on that card. Get a 3x open blind on blind on the upper left-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet with my ace-5 suited. I'd like to mix in a couple of suited aces. Small suited aces or smaller suited cards. Ace-5 is one I'm using right now. Takes it down on the turn, which takes a tough river decision away from me there with bottom set in a deep pot, and especially when a lot of turn or river cards can be kind of dicey for me. Not that I'm worried. I've got a good hand, of course, but could be against draws to even better hands, or could be against trapped hands like sets of queens or kings. Tried to limp the small blind after the rec limps in the upper left-hand table. The big blind, however, was not having any of that, so I'm going to fold out against that isolation raise. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind, I will open pocket sevens. Check range to the big blind on the flop. Not a great flop for sevens. Ace, king, 10, rainbow. Going to open king 10 from the cutoff on the upper right-hand table. He checks back the flop. Turn is a board pairing card, the king. I'm going to start jabbing at that pot small. If I happen to hit a 7 for the underfold, I'm going to be betting the river very, very big. Otherwise, I'll probably be bluffing for a smaller size. Trying to fold out mostly a 10x type hand more so than anything else. I think is pretty reasonable. I don't really want to try to show this down. It's not going to get the showdown nearly often enough, but I can actually pick up this pot occasionally with a bluff. He checked back a weak ace in the flop, which I think is reasonable. I don't mind his play, even though it did own me there in that particular case. I think my play is allow me to bluff most effectively with a pocket pair on that board. heads up with pocket eights. That should be a 3-bet. I'm going to go ahead and put in a 3-bet here. Heads up with the eights. I'll open 8-6 offsuit heads up. Comes along for the call. I flop a gut shot on the queen 5-4 two-tone board. Going to go ahead and put in the small bet on the flop. Comes along for the call. Decent card for me, the 6, giving me second pair. That'll go along with the gut shot, which I still have. I think this is going to be a prime card to check back, assuming he doesn't lead into me. He does not. Go ahead and check. There's that 7 I was looking for all along. A lot better had the 6 not peeled as well, as my hand is much more disguised and nutted, whereas now I no longer beat 8-9, which is the true nut straight. However, I've got to feel that this is pretty good. He goes and overbets 12 into 768. I'm not going to fold the straight here. I'm not going to raise because I'm not going to get too much value from anything but other 8s or 8-9, which I don't get value from. It crushes me. So I'm just going to go ahead and call here. And he turned queen 10 into... Apparently he was overbet bluffing on that 4 straight with queen 10. I think I would have played differently. I would have found, you know, busted spade draws to bluff with would have made more sense, or maybe some kind of low straight draw that didn't hit if he had something along those lines. I think queen 10 I would have probably just tried to show down, maybe turned into a check raise bluff against a bet kind of thing. Or just check call if he thinks I'm just stabbing with there. I don't really like his overbet lead as a bluff there, and I don't like it as a... I don't like his overbet there with queen 10 with that hand for value either. I think his river play is probably not great. But I also don't play a lot of heads up, so maybe I'm talking out my rear end here. I don't know. Lower left-hand table, or upper left-hand table, open ace-king suited from middle position. Small blind comes along. He's been tight passive so far through 21 hands. Doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, but he's probably a reg based on the tight stats and the full stack or close to full stack he's playing with. Means his small blind range is also probably going to be a bit pocket pair heavy. Upper right hand table, going to 3-bet with queen jack suited against the under the gun open. Upper left hand table, it's a double board pairing turn card. 8-8 jack jack texture full rainbow. Just going to go ahead and check back my ace king high, try to get closer to showdown, chop with other ace highs. No need to try to bluff him off full house or some kind of pocket pair type hand. And I do actually beat 7s, 6s, 5s, 3s, and deuces right now, which he may turn into a bluff, and in fact probably should. I get 4-bet here with my queen jack suited. We are deep, but that's not alone is enough reason for me to start calling 4-bets. It's a pretty tight formation. Queen jack is not really anything but a clear fold to me in this spot. I'm not going to let the fact that we're change that too dramatically. He's also been pretty passive with his 3-bets so far. One could infer he may be passive with his 4-bets as well. He leads 348 into 895. I'll just go ahead and call down with my ace-king high. Got some thin value with 3-pair, pocket 9. I think is a fine way to play, but I think with my ace high there, I'm content to do it and just try to chop with other ace highs or snap off his counterfeited 3-pair bluffs. Turn my weaker stuff with no showdown value into bluff raises. Bluff raise. Turn my open ace, king, queen under the gun on the upper left-hand table. Lower right-hand table, first hand, blind on blind, facing a 3x open, defend with 10-9 offsuit for a call. Upper right-hand table, open an ace-jack suited under the gun. Lower right-hand table on the queen 7-5, two-tone board he checks. I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at it small. I can barrel a lot of turn cards, like eights and jacks most specifically there, having picked up open-enders on those cards, in some cases with good removal. On the 8, I've got good removal to 6-9 for the nut straight as well, which I could conceivably have. So we'll start getting some money in that pot and give myself some options on later streets. Lower right-hand table, 2x open, or 2.5x open from the button. I will 3-bet out of my small blind with pocket 8s. 3-betting a lot, but not all of my pocket pairs here. Ace, jack plus king, queen, suited aces. Some suited 9x type hands. 3-betting very aggressively here in this loose formation. Now I go ahead and get 4-bet. Loose formation, I'm going to have to defend these 4-bets pretty widely. I think I can defend as low as pocket 8s, pocket 7s against the pool's 4-betting tendency. Take the call, go to the flop, check range on the flop. Pretty decent flop for me as it's a low board, 6-4 deuce. I've got an overpair with pocket 8s. I've also got the spade in my hand. I'm in bad shape against a higher overpair also with the spade, but not in bad shape against too much anything else. Either that or flop flushes. He goes ahead and bets about a quarter pot because this is a flop that is probably not that great for him in his range, and it's pretty. I've got a hand that's pretty good here. I'm going to go ahead and check shove. Be check shoving my flushes, my overpairs, especially with the spade, all my pocket aces with or without. Well, he hasn't snapped me off, so that's a good sign. 2.5x open from the button on the lower left-hand table. I will defend for a call with 3 deuce suited and check on the flop. Great flop for me. 6-5, 3 two-tone, giving me the flush draw, the gut shot, and bottom pair. He bets small. Given that I've got some showdown value here, he calls me off with ace-queen overcards with a spade, so he calls me off the flip and outruns me, which is just fine. I'm going to go ahead and check call with my weak pair and a variety of lower draws. Only got 3 blinds left, just going to shove them in and try to pick up that pot over here with my 10-8. This call's a little questionable, but understandable. Now a 4 straight's possible, but I've still got a weak pair and the flush draw. Check call here again, get to the river. River gives me a low 2 pair. Conceivably bluff catch on this. I'm not that worried about him having 8, 9, or 4. He'll have them some, but let's see what he does before I jump to any conclusions. Let's see here. The 4 straight turn card, which tends to be overbluffed. It's the low board staying low, which tends to be overbluffed. It's a loose formation, which tends to be overbluffed. Granted that the size is about neutral, or maybe a little underbluffed. But I think that all adds up to a bluff catch here. I'm going to go do it. Bluffing with the busted straight draw, which is not an unreasonable play in my opinion, but just because this play is not unreasonable doesn't mean I'm going to fold to it every time, especially when not that suspicious that he's truly properly weighted towards value in that line. Get a 3x open blind on blind, lower right hand table. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet with king 7 suited. Not quite good enough to defend for a call, but I will mix it in as a 3-bet. He quickly 4-bets me and I'll fold. We get a limp and isolation from the button. I'm in the small blind with jacks. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet that up and plan to get that in. Just trying to figure out my sizing. Real big 3-bet sizing and go ahead and fold the Jack 9. Opening from the button on both the lower tables with both 9-8 suited and pocket 5s. And I get re-raised from 2.5 to 4. I am folding literally nothing against that, so I'm just going to go ahead and come along for the call with 8-9 suited. Get a King Jack 8 two-tone board. Goes ahead and bets half pot. I'll float here against a half pot bet. Equity. Interesting turn card, giving me a small 2-pair on a coordinated board. He goes ahead and bets half pot. I'm going to continue floating in position here and make an assessment on the river. River is a nice blank card. Lower right-hand table, we're going to go ahead and put in a small range bet on Queen Jack 9. Let's see here. I think he can have various hands like aces, ace, king. I'm going to go ahead and try to get value. We're going to go ahead and jam for about 2x pot. A little bit thin, but against a fish, we can go thin for value with not great, but good hands. Here's what we're going to do. He folds out. Lower right-hand table on the 4 straight turn, I go ahead and check back. River is another card contributing to that straight. Now we've got King, Queen, 9, Queen, Jack, 9, 8, King. Going to go ahead and turn my pocket 5s into a bluff. I don't think it's going to get through a ton, but I think I'll fold out some better hands often enough to make it a while. Upper right-hand table, opening ace-10 from middle position. Big blind comes along, decent flop for this hand, 10-9-9 two-tone. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. I'm checking back a lot of turns, but not all of them. I'm going to wait and see which ones I get and think about it. 3 of diamonds, flush closing turn with no diamond in my hand. I don't want to play overbet or check on these flush closures. I want to use a smaller size. I'm going to go half pot, and I'm going to be a lot more mergy with that half pot size. So a hand like top pair, top kicker is going to be one that's welcome to bet. If I've got the diamond in my hand, like I've got the ace of diamonds, I'll check that one back a lot. They have good diamonds in my check back range. But I'll bet this one to give myself some protection. However, now on that 4 diamond run out, interesting. Do I bluff with this? I guess I could still check down and be good against other pairs of 10s that don't have a diamond. I just don't know that I'm folding out any kind of diamond that called often enough to justify turning this into a bluff. I'm going to take my showdown, and I'm against another ace-10, no diamond. I guess my bluff would have folded him off a chop, but that's a pretty small case right there. Lower right-hand table, I open 8s from middle position, got called on the button. I'll check range to the in-position player on the 9-9-6 two-tone board. He stabs pretty heavy, 4 into 6. I'm going to go ahead and check call my 8s on that board, continue checking the turn. Queen of Hearts with no heart in my hand is not an ideal card for me, but he checks back. I'm going to continue checking, try to show it down for free. He goes and he stabs 11 into about 14. Right on the cusp of it really being a good idea to turn into a bluff raise. Actually, probably a little reckless to bluff raise it, but I wonder if I can bluff call it. I mean, it's a pretty decent size up right there. However, bet check bet is really not all that, value heavy. Let me think about this for a minute here. I think it's kind of close. I don't have great blockers. I mean, that size up on the flop also tends to indicate it being less bluff heavy. The river is kind of on the cusp for exactly how bluffy it is, but it's under bluff to some extent. Pretty close. I think it's okay to fold this one, though. Upper right-hand table, I defended a big blind open with queen jack, or a button open from the big blind with queen jack. Flop checks through. I lead this turn small. The board was 9-7 deuce rainbow. Turn is a 10 of hearts, which gives me the open-ender. I lead small and get raised. I don't believe that that's all that strong a hand here, especially with that small sizing from a reg. I think I can actually go ahead and turn this into a 3-bet bluff because I've got such good removal to hands like Jack-8, and I've got equity if he does come along and call. So I'm going to go ahead and repot this against this guy. I just don't think he's really checking back his sets or pocket tens on that board. You could have a hand like 10-9, 10-7 that check back the flop. I think his straight draws that dinked on the turn have all bet the flop as well. He calls my turn 3-bet, however. I think I'm just going to shut down now. I think I'm getting that through a ton if I'm going to get it through at all. On the river, I'm probably not getting it through nearly as much. It's probably better to jam if I am going to have some jams to not have the heart in my hand, as his flush draws are not blocked. The auto-folded brick flush draws are not blocked. He goes ahead and moves all in. I will go ahead and fold out. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind, I will open queen deuce. Queen deuce suited. Lower left-hand table, under the gun limper, I'll isolate from the cutoff with pocket sixes, using something like a middle position open range. Blind on blind, lower right-hand table, I'll check range out of position on the ace-7-4 two-tone board. Turn is a board pairing ace, putting a second flush draw up there. I'm going to go ahead and jab small, plan to bluff the river. My isolation pot, I get a king 8-6 two-tone flop. I've got bottom set. I'll go ahead and put in a small bet. I take that one down quickly. Quicker than I would have liked with the set in my hand. Lower right-hand table, I'll open queen 10 from the cutoff. Upper right-hand table, open queens from the button. Big blind comes along, get a king-king-9 two-tone flop. We'll go ahead and put in the small flop bet. Lower left-hand table, open ace-7 suited under the gun. Small blind calls me. He's been calling a lot out of position. And in position, he's been calling a lot more than a typical reg does. He may be slightly on the fishy side. Go ahead and put in a small bet again. The Jack-Jack-Deuce rainbow board can barrel on some straight draw cards. That particular card, I really think I only want to be betting for value with hands like strong trips or deuces full. I think I'll just go ahead and check this back. Maybe make some plays on the river. Great turn card for me, the upper right-hand table, the Queen of Hearts, completing the straights and flushes, but giving me an underfull. Now I get led into, I'm not really going to put in too many bluff raises in the small blind. I'm going to be a bit more cautious here on this one and just fold out. Lower left-hand table, flop checks through. Turn is a 7, giving me top trips. I'm going to go ahead and start betting small here, multi-way. He leads into me on that card. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small raise with my full house. Not letting him set his price that small here. Now, the recreational player calls my small bet. Now it's a double board pairing river. I've got top full house. Going to go ahead and try to get value. Not going to overbet here. Just going to use a more smaller standard size, not scare him off checks. Upper left-hand table, going to go ahead and 3-bet my big blind with kings against a tight player's button open. I'm going to 3-bet more like against a cutoff open here than a button open because this guy's been 15-8 over 40 hands. The pocket kings, of course, still being 3-bet. We'll fold deuces from middle position, upper right-hand table. A little probably want to fold some of the weakest pairs in earlier spots. Upper left-hand table, opening 9s from the cutoff. Face a roughly 3x in position 3-bet. Lower right-hand table, going to open Jack 10 from the button. The lower left-hand table. I'm going to defend the 3-bet with 9s, however, against the cold 4-bet, I'm going to get out of the way instead. Really not calling anything there, just jamming over the top all in or folding out. Small 3-bet, lower right-hand table. Against that small 3-bet, I'm going to start defending a lot more hands, especially in position, but they're going to be weighted more towards hands that flop more robust equity. I want suited connectors, suited aces, pocket pairs. I don't want offsuit broadways that can be dominated very easily. So I'm going to go ahead and fold the Jack 10. Against that size, I'm pretty much not folding the suited cards that I opened, or the pocket pairs at all. I can continue with more stuff like queen, king, queen, ace, jack than I might otherwise do, but some of the weaker offsuit broadways are really fun. A 10 kind of on the cusp, blind on blind open. I mostly fold it these days, but it's real close. I'm usually open hands like 8-9, 10-9, fold 10. So it's right there, real. Could go either way. Upper right hand table, open king queen from the cutoff. Face that 3-bet from the small blind. Just go ahead and fold the offsuit king queen. Lower left hand table, I will open 10s under the gun. Face an in position button 3x 3-bet. Can defend a few mid pairs like jacks through 8s and a couple suited broadways like ace queen, king queen. Maybe 4-bet queens plus ace king here, maybe ace queen offsuit bluff. 10s, I'm going to go ahead and take the flop. As he flop for tens on the ace king 5 board as it just smacks his range. Aces king so hard. I don't have any sets here, as my aces and kings were 4-bet pre-flop and my 5s are folded out. Honestly, even check calling to try to, appeal a 10 is really kind of questionable, as I don't even make the nuts on that possible Broadway straight. Now he goes and checks back. Now I can actually have jacks here. I can have ace queen and queen. I could maybe be perceived as having 5s for queen 10. I'm going to go ahead and have the turn small here. And he folds. Wow. I thought I was going to have to follow through on the river to have any chance of getting a full, but I took it down on the turn. No complaints from me. I'm happy to pick up that pot uncontested. Upper right-hand table, the recreational player, or suspected rec. He's playing 22-12, but with limps. He's at least a weaker reg. Either way, he open limps, small blind completes. I'm not going to let either of those things stand with my king-queen suited in the big blind, so I will pop that up. And I'm facing a limp re-raise. Okay, so this is a guy that's being kind of cutesy. I think I actually am supposed to fold here against that. Gonna go ahead and shut the session down here. Games still look pretty good, but I'm nearing the end of where I plan to be playing for. I've got a few other things to do, so I'm going to at least take a little break. Maybe I'll find a way back in later on at some point today, but at least for now I'm going to stick to the plan and jump out of the games about when I expected to. Lower right-hand table, opening Jack-9 suited under the gun. Against the in position 3, but I will, however, be folding that Jack-9 suited. Upper left-hand table, opening 10s from the button. A 3-bet gets a cold 4-bet, so now I fold my Jack-9 even faster. An ace-7-5 rainbow board on the upper left-hand table against a big blind recreational player that's playing about 70 blinds deep to start the hand. Go ahead and put in a small bet on the flop here as he checks. To be checking the turn unless I happen to hit my 10, which I do. Isn't that glorious? Now he's still, we're not really all that deep here. I don't have to use such a large size to set this pot up the way I want. So about 75%, that's going to put about 20 in the pot with about 60 left. Set me up for that 3x river jam on it. Go ahead and do that. Maybe go slightly larger, more like 7, but put in here at this point. And take it down with the second barrel. Wasn't all that strong. He's not folding an ace there to a second barrel. Upper right-hand table will open Ace-King under the gun. Face a 3-bet from a player. They're a little bit deeper, about 130 blinds deep, but not deep enough that I'm going to shy away from stacking off with Ace-King, especially against a guy who's been very aggressive with the pre-flop 3-betting, 16% so far, plus another one this hand. Still stack off with Queens plus Ace-King here in this 4-bet line. Lower left-hand table, opening Ace-4 suited from middle position. He jams all in. I will call off with my Ace-King. Ran into pocket kings. Ain't that a bitch? Looking for a 10 or an ace, though. Don't find it. Lousy last hand, but what are you going to do? Sometimes they pick up pocket kings. Lower left-hand table, middle position open, faces a small blind 3-bet. Go ahead and fold my Ace-4 suited against that. Upper left-hand table, opening King-Queen suited from middle position. Recreational player on the button, playing about 65 blinds deep, clicks it back, and then the small blind, probably also a little on the fishy side, goes ahead and overcalls. I'm really not folding anything here for that stupid little 2.5 to 4x size. I'll call with my King-Queen suited. Flop the nut flush draw on the Ace-8-4 two-tone board. Check to the razor in position. Checking my entire range here. Probably not check raising even against a bet. I don't expect to ever get him to really fold an ace. I can stab the river if the turn checks through, or I can just bink the nut flush and continue checking. Now he goes ahead and checks back. Just going to go ahead and move all in for about 2.5x pot here against a fishy player in position. See if he just hero calls me. At an ace, he's going to consider calling regardless of the size I use. I want to get maximum value when he's actually got something he can call down here with. Especially because I think he's a fish based on the fact that he's playing short. He's been limping. He's using goofy 3-bet sizes like 2.5 to 4. Doesn't work, but like the approach. Doesn't have to work all that often to be worthwhile compared to a smaller bet when I'm super nutted like that and I beat everything that calls. I'm going to open Ace-10 suited under the gun. And that's the last hand, so I'm shutting it down. Thank you for watching the video. Till next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.